My dear friends and other YouTube viewers, Salamun Alaikum. It's good to be with you. So I just want to offer you an understanding of the current flare-up with the resistance within Palestine and give you a way of thinking and understanding what it is that we are witnessing. It's not irrelevant and it's not unrelated to the topics that we've been covering on this channel. One of the key arguments that I've been highlighting on this channel is that the Muslim worldview, the Muslim understanding of Islam, the Muslim epistemology has been compromised. The basis on which we construct our sacred beliefs has been contaminated. Our sacred religious understanding is compromised. That contamination is what we've been questioning and revising on this channel, and what I've been arguing against, as have similar other YouTube channels. We passionately argue that we as a people, we as a culture, we as a civilization have drifted far away from our real sacred text, which was supposed to be the only reliable divine word, the Qur'an. We argue on this channel, as do other channels similar to this one, that imposter texts have been co-opted with the sacred divine word of God. These imposter texts have been cleverly infused with sacredness by those who invented them, and they don't have such sacred value. They bestowed sacred value on these additional imposter texts by cleverly claiming that what they've done is to collect and compile the actual words of the messenger of Islam, the messenger of God. But of course we know that the messenger of God never spoke or wrote those words. He never reproduced those words in a formal way. Nor is there any legal proof that he even uttered those words. So proof would be, of course, multiple attestation, multiple witness accounts or recorded accounts, but we don't have any such accounts. So what we have is we simply have these words ascribed to the Prophet in the form of singular narrations, one-man stories. So it's a one-man story that is ascribed to the Prophet. And we know that in legal terms, such a story has zero value. There is no way that any person can make a legal claim based on one witness account. And Hadith books are all the product of such one witness accounts. These are the stories or the narratives that have been infused with divine power, divine value. My friends, that is what this channel is questioning. But how does it relate to the Muslim mindset and to the terrible tragedy of Palestine and other similar tragedies in the Muslim countries and Muslim societies in the world today? The biggest cause of our downfall is Hadith literature. The biggest cause of our downfall is inserting God's mind or God's spirit into the hadiths of Abu Huraira or into the hadiths of Zurara or whoever came with claims about the Prophet in a hadith book. Hadiths were a tool used by corrupt kings and sultans to usurp the Muslim mind, to stop the Muslim from thinking. It was an attempt at steering the Muslim mind away from reflection and reflectiveness or reflexiveness. So what is reflexiveness? Reflexiveness is to apply your mind to life and to your daily encounters, to ponder intellectually, to ponder productively about the world as we experience it. And what hadiths do is to estrange the Muslim from his own mind, to bring to a halt the intellectual process. It replaces the intellect with a narrative or the story or the fairy tale. And so the only type of thinking that the Muslim mind can engage in is referencing a hadith, is citing a hadith or a story or a fairy tale. This in opposition to the Qur'an, which calls for pondering, reflection, and thinking. The Qur'an takes this direction. Here are the outlines, here are the parameters, here is the bigger picture. Now be a thoughtful person, be a person of reflexiveness, be a person of restraint, be a person of conscience, and act within those boundaries. What Hadith stories have done was to take away this reflexiveness. They take away the free thinking. They rob the Muslim of his free thinking, turning Muslims into Hadith zombies, narrative zombies, story zombies. What happens when people become zombies of the narrative? They of course become subject to manipulation. It's much easier to manipulate them because all you have to do is manipulate the narrative. Like if you tell people the story of the three bears, the way you tell the story, there's villains and there's good guys, right? But if you tell the story from the perspective of the bears, then the good guys trade places with the bad guys. So the person who controls the narrative controls your mind and therefore your behavior. That is exactly how the Western world, the Anglo-Saxon world works today. Those who control the narrative control the masses, and those who spin the story are owned by the rich and powerful elite, the mass media, the mainstream media, the CNNs, the CBS, the ABCs, the BBCs, the Al Jazeera. They spin the story. The corporate media is not just close to the Western elite. They are in fact the same elite. They are the Western elite. They spin the story and they decide who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. They build and construct the narrative. They construct the narrative that the gullible masses consume. Those masses of people simply act based on the garbage they are fed. It is in the same way that the average Muslim has turned into being a manipulable, gullible sucker and a fool, being abused by their rulers over the years. Their rulers pay off their scholars, the so-called Hadith experts. And via these scholars or Hadith experts, they control the narrative. And when they control the narrative, they control what you think to be good and what is bad. So they can make you think that a corrupt king that steals and robs the resources of the country is not the enemy. And that the enemy is, in fact, those who are trying to liberate you. So the narrative has replaced the thinking of the Muslim. The Hadith has supplanted or replaced the thinking of the Muslim. So the Hadith shapes the behavior of the Muslim and robs them of their sanity and their agency and their ability to ponder productively about the world. What I'm saying to you is that Hadith has replaced the reflexiveness of the Muslim. That reflexiveness is the ability to act intelligently, and that is in fact the gift of acting independently and having agency. And so the Muslim global world population of 2 billion have been robbed of that ability. It is for that reason that you get a situation where a scourge such as Israel, with 10 million settlers, is able to outsmart and outwit 300 million Arab Muslims, because a non-thinking person can never be a match for a thinking person. Israel is a calamity. Israel is a plague that has descended on the Muslim world. It is not a test. It is a form of punishment or retribution from God. It's a lesson. It's a warning from God to Muslims to get rid of the corruption of misguided beliefs and misguided scholars who teach you how to think or teach you not to think, who teach us to be monkeys and to imitate, instead of thinking for ourselves. Those imposters who promote a religious discourse that is independent and often opposed to the Qur'an and in service of the kings and the sultans. That is the lesson we should learn from this calamity called Israel. The tragedy of Palestine is the tragedy of betrayal, not of the West, but the betrayal by the Muslims, their kings, their sultans, their priests, of the gullible masses, their dumbed down masses. We are paying the price of 1400 years of being dumbed down as a people, as a global community, a people without rational reflection, a people without any reflection, a people without agency, a people of superstition, a gullible people. We are outsmarted at every corner by those who think for us. We call for peace when we should be going to war, and we call for war with each other when we should be living in harmony and peace with each other. But alhamdulillah, change is coming, inshallah, and I believe the growing ability by Muslim communities such as the Palestinians to score victories is a sign of this. Certain movements within the Muslim world are moving in the right direction, especially those who promote a rationalist, smart way of dealing with our problems. I'm referring to the liberation movements within Palestine, within Lebanon, within Yemen. These people are shaking off their obsessions with their madhab, with their Shia madhab, with their Sunni madhab, and finding common grounds from the text of the Holy Qur'an. Placing the Hadith, putting the Hadith one side. Hadith scholars call for division. Hadith scholars call for condemning each other based on madhabs. Hadith scholars call for making peace with Israel. Hadith scholars are calling for us to respect our kings and our sultans and to accept and tolerate their theft and their murder. And what these new movements are saying to these corrupt, compromised scholars is to hell with the fake scholars. Hopefully what we are seeing will prove to redeem us as a local community. In the past few years, we've seen a movement like Hamas, for example, transforming from being a hardcore Salafist organization to putting that Salafism aside. In 2011, for example, Hamas was strongly under Salafist influence still. But that seems to be changing. In 2011, they stupidly joined the anti-Bashar al-Assad, the anti-Syrian bandwagon, and became involved with ISIS. And they became involved with Al-Qaeda and all these criminal elements in Iraq. And they were manipulated by some of their own leaders who were on the Saudi payroll. They attacked the very Syria that gave them shelter and support. And what did that bring them? It brought them embarrassment and eventually defeat. And so what we see now is a new Hamas, hopefully, a Hamas that is grown and learned from its own mistake, a Hamas that has detached itself from hardcore Sunnism, Salafism, and that is building common cause with other Muslim formations, with other resistance movements. They've clearly broken with their Salafist past, hopefully. And what I'm saying is that these are signs that the Muslims have turned the corner, moving from sectarianism to solidarity, to build a new alliance on our core ideas, based on the core principles, based on the sacred principles of Islam, not based on fake stories and fake fairy tales. Those stories are only there to manipulate the Muslims and to keep us enslaved, to take us down the garden path of superstition and stupidity. And once a man and a woman can think independently, it's impossible for the devil to keep on deceiving them. If a man makes rational sense of the world, if he understands the forces, the powers that are operating and his place within that context, he is able to meet his enemy on equitable terms, not hamstrung by false beliefs and false values and other nonsense. Out of that, we will be able to emerge as a free-thinking and liberated new people. And inshallah, that is my prayer, that what we are seeing is not only the liberation of a people, but the liberation of our minds as a global Muslim community, inshallah.